Hello my friends, welcome back to another VR hardware review. This time it's for the Mac11 Gunstock. A lot of you have noticed that I've been using this with the recent batch of shooter games, and so here is the review on this hardware finally. I received this for free to review, and it's a 3D printed gunstock, but it feels quite sturdy. This gunstock is all about magnets. It's how the wands stay attached to it, and thanks to the magnets, you can detach the wands easily for reloading your gun or picking up a pistol or what have you. So with this being all about magnets, obviously the Vive wands don't have magnets inside. That requires some assembly. When the gunstock arrived, the assembly of the gunstock itself was super easy, very simple and straightforward. And it comes with these magnet pieces that you use an Allen wrench to cinch them and keep them nice and tight inside the ring of the wands. And with that cinched in, that's how these become magnetized to attach to the gunstock. I was worried at first about wear and tear on the wands themselves, but it turns out the wear and tear is pretty much exclusively on the magnet pieces themselves. The wands have very little wear and tear as a result, and they feel pretty safe. So even though it's magnetized, I feel like the magnet strength is just right, because the magnet strength is such that it feels stable, it feels sturdy when you're holding the wands, and they don't really detach or flop or fall off. So they're strong enough to stay on the stock, but they're also not too strong so that you can somewhat easily detach them for the reloading or grabbing other things or menus or what have you. There's 3 magnet positions, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. And the reason for that is so you can easily switch between holding a longer gun or a shorter gun. I admit my gun terminology is a little sad. I don't know a lot about guns, but like let's say you're holding a sniper rifle, that would be your longer position, but then maybe an Uzi or a pistol would be your shorter position. And the placement for these magnets are in good positions because if you've played any shooter games, you know that inside the game wants you to hold the virtual gun with 2 hands, and the placement for where your hands are on the gunstock pretty much perfectly match up where you're holding it in the game. Let's say I take this off to reload a magazine or do something else, and then I put it back and grip in with the virtual gun in the game. The placement feels just right, so that's nice. One small but important detail is the shoulder strap, and for me it's a lifesaver because I can just let everything drop down to put on or off the headset and then pick everything back up again. Because without this, you would need to put the gunstock on the floor and then go find it or something. So the shoulder strap, small detail but very important. Overall, the experience of playing with this is really great. I'm not huge into shooter games. I'm not the biggest shooter fan, as you all probably know by now, but I really enjoyed Zero Caliber, and playing Zero Caliber with this went from good to great. Having the weight of this and the shoulder brace just makes everything feel so much more legit. And the magnets work really well, being able to detach, reload, and get back on again. It just works really well. It's not very heavy, it's actually kind of light, but just having some weight makes a big difference in believing that you're holding these guns, and yeah, it just feels good playing with this. So let's talk about the downsides. I tested this by playing in Pavlov, Contractors, Onward, and Zero Caliber. And some games, to look down a scope, require you to have your face all the way up against the scope. Some games don't require that, you can see the scope from wherever you are, but some of them, like Onward and Contractors, require you to be all the way up against the scope to see through it. And as a result, my headset was constantly banging against the back of this. And so I added foam to the back because when I was playing, I would constantly hear clack, clack when I was banging it against the gunstock in order to get close enough to see through the scope. So I added a bit of foam here, and that has alleviated that annoyance for me. I also added a piece of foam here because whenever I was looking down a scope, I would press my cheek against this part, and something about the texture or the seams, I'm not sure, it would pull my facial hair out. It would really annoy me. I'd be looking down and scoping, I wouldn't know it would catch my hair, and then I would pull it out and I would lose some facial hair. So that was an unpleasant experience. I did not enjoy that, so I covered some foam here, and that fixed that for me. The magnets are loud. Whenever you smack these on and off, especially if you have an echoey place like we do, it's just a loud noise, a lot of clacking. And when I was playing last weekend, all the shooter games, I kind of drove my wife crazy just because all day long it was clack, clack, clack. So that might be a factor depending on your living situation and whatnot. It is kind of loud. One other thing to note is that if you ever play games that aren't shooter games, you're going to want to take the magnets out of the wands because they add just enough weight that if you play other games, it gets pretty uncomfortable after a while. And so if you play anything that's not a shooter game, you're going to need to take the magnets on and off pretty frequently between games. And one other downside is that the top of this stock, in addition to bumping up against it when you're sniping, the top of it also, the height of it gets in the way sometimes depending on the gun you want to play with. So for examples, here I am in Contractors, and I have a gun that doesn't have a big scope on it. And let me show you, when I try to look in the sights of this, I actually can't get far enough to the right and down in order to see down the scope. I'd have to do this in order to see down the scope because of just the geometry of it all and the height of this. And actually it's also this bar here gets in the way. This scope, this rail sight is just too low for me to get to. The shoulder part is stopping me from getting that low, but you should know that not every gun will accommodate this thing, so sometimes I would try to turn it to get a little more straight, but yeah, it's just not possible with some of the sights. Versus with the actual big sniper scope, with this tall scope, I can see really nicely. The height is great. So be aware that for a tall scope, you're good to go. But for short sight rails, you're going to have a hard time seeing down the rail. So to summarize, this retails for $170 on their website. Now that does include shipping from China, but it's a very expensive accessory. And I feel like it boils down to one important factor, and it's back to looking down the sight rails of guns that don't have sniper scopes. If you play only with sniper scopes, this could work for you. But if you're hoping to use this and look down the sight rail of every gun, you're going to be disappointed. But even if you only play with sniper scopes, it's still very expensive. So it has its pros and cons, but bottom line, it's pretty pricey. So those are my thoughts on the Mac11 Gunstock. Thank you for watching, and if you have more questions, do let me know down below. If there's anything I missed, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you later, alright? See ya!